I want to show you a couple of clips of progressive members of Congress absolutely grilling oil executives. This was good to see. It's just kind of satisfying to watch this shit, you know. So we're going to start with Rashida Tlaib, and then we will watch Cori Bush second. I wanted to show you guys the full clip here. So this is the full 5 minutes. There are a couple of, particularly tantalizing bits in here. So this is Rashida Tlaib grilling some oil executives this previous week. Enjoy.
Mr. Woods, did Exxon help fund One Alaska? Yes or no?
I'm not familiar with that.
Well, One Alaska was a front group created specifically to oppose Alaska's ballot initiative that would require oil companies to pay their fair share. It actually received nearly $21 million in contributions. 94% of One Alaska's contributions came from 5 oil and gas companies, including Exxon and BP. So I would like to submit for the record, Madam Chair, an article, Oil Companies Spend Big to Try to Defeat Alaska's Tax Proposal.
Without objection.
Same thing in Colorado in 2018, where a measure, this is resident-led measure, ballot measure, to ban oil and gas extraction within a half a mile of homes, schools, and waterways on the ballot. That front group was called Colorado Rising. And that one, again, resident-led, that one, Mike Wirth, I'm not even going to bother to ask if you're familiar with, because I know the answer. Many of you, all of you, helped fund some of these. I guess Chevron specifically funded $33 million behind its subsidiary, Noble Energy, contributed to that front group. Mr. Summers, are you familiar with Energy Citizens?
I am familiar with Energy Citizens, Congresswoman.
I'm glad you are. It's a front group to American Petroleum Institute, uses it to flood Facebook with hundreds of ads opposing climate provisions in the Build Back Better Act. There, you all spent about, what, nearly $500,000 in misleading ads since August. Of course, when you look at these ads, y'all, the public, when you look at these ads, they don't say the name Exxon, BP, Chevron anywhere. Y'all hide and you deceive the public. So oil and gas companies can go claiming that they are pro-environment while opposing sensible pro-environment measures in secret. Lies, plain and simple. Madam Chair, in Michigan, and I'd like to submit for the record as well, Michigan utilities front groups begin misleading and campaigns ahead of a vote on energy legislation for the record.
Without objection.
There, DTE Energy and Consumers Energy used a front group called Alliance for Michigan Power and Citizens for Energizing Michigan's Economy, respectively, to target my residents and their amazing work. Amazing work. They're the ones fundraising for this, Madam Chair, to support increased rooftop solar energy. That's how they wanted to cut the energy cost so they can make a living, so they can provide a quality life for their families by reducing their reliance on corporate polluters. Mike Wirth, when are you going to cut the check?
Congresswoman, I'm not trying to understand the context of your question.
That's okay. Okay, so
could I, excuse me, I'd like to correct something that you've
sure.
been provided with some inaccurate information. Noble Energy was not a subsidiary of Chevron in 2000.
Okay, you can submit it for the record, sir. So Chevron, you can submit it to the committee. Chevron has about 70 serious cases of environmental and community abuses in 31 countries worldwide, owing over $50 billion in judgments and settlements checks, literally settlement debts that you all have. So Mike, when are you going to cut the check?
Congresswoman, I'm not familiar with the number you
When are you going to cut the $50 billion check that you owe? It went through the courts. You owe $50 billion to communities in 31 countries.
Congresswoman, I'd be happy to take a look at the source for your information on
Sure.
this and get back to you on it, because I have no understanding of what.
Well, I have a message for you as Chevron CEO. I mean, you made what, $29 million last year in poisoning the planet? Mr. Wirth, you can't arrest us all. You can't arrest the truth. Do you understand what I'm trying to say to you?
Congresswoman, I am not exactly following.
So you're targeting in actions against the human rights lawyer Dotzinger. I mean, what you did there, your company, maybe through subsidiaries, I don't know. I just want to remind you, there are more of us than there are of you. You can poison the planet to make money, but we're going to defend the planet so we can live, and we will win. So, I need Chevron to cut the check. You owe $50 billion to indigenous communities and people that you harmed for profit. This is not about vilifying these companies. This is about accountability. You all know we're all paying the cost, from our public health to our environment, the actions that you take, and you're hiding behind subsidiaries, and it's wrong. These are residents putting ballot initiatives on their local ballot to make a difference, to save our planet. Get out of the way so they can do the work for the people in the community they live in. Thank you, and I yield.
Rashida pretty well seared him there. And do you guys notice how they just play fucking dumb? We covered this too with the big tech jackasses last week. Zuckerberg and, they just play dumb. Bezos was one of them. I'm not familiar with what you referenced. I would need to see a source on that. I don't know jack shit about the company that I run, so I can't answer any of these questions. It's all just, their lawyers tell them don't answer anything that you don't have, that you aren't asked explicitly. Any way you can dance around a question or say, I don't know, it's pathetic. But that is the strategy they take. So again, I said Cori Bush. That is the next clip that we're going to watch here. Same hearing, grilling the same assholes. By the way, huge shout out to Rashida Tlaib for mentioning Donziger and calling Chevron out for their conduct as it pertains to Stephen Donziger. This is Cori Bush also grilling those fossil fuel executives.
In large part to those testifying today and the corporations they represent, St. Louis has 11 more 90-degree days per year than when I was born. Mr. Lawler, are the overwhelming majority of fossil fuel CEOs Black or white?
I don't have the exact numbers, but I would assume they're white.
Yes. Ms. Watkins, is an oil refinery more likely to be situated in a Black community or a white community?
I'm not sure how to answer that, honestly. We've got oil refineries along the U.S. Gulf Coast, and we're very proud to be community members there.
It's Black. Yeah, it's Black. Mr. Work, are the impacts of climate change more likely to hit a Black neighborhood or a white neighborhood first?
Congresswoman, I have not seen studies that would allow me to give you
The answer is Black. The facts are clear. A 2017 NAACP and Clean Air Task Force report found that Black Americans are 75% more likely to live next to company, industrial, and service facilities that directly harm us. For years, you all have continued to promote fossil fuels despite knowing that promoting them means promoting environmental racism and violence in Black and brown communities. You all are still promoting and selling fossil fuels that are killing millions of people. This is a striking example of white supremacy. Your profit-driven choices threaten my life, the lives of my family, my neighbors, and our communities every single day. I sit before you as a Black Congresswoman with asthma caused by fossil fuels and the tear gas you fund. I have a lot of questions, let me say. Mr. Woods, as CEO, are you responsible for what Exxon does? Yes or no? It's just a yes or no.
For what ExxonMobil does, yes, I am.
Thank you. Thank you for that answer. It's not a coincidence that toxic waste is frequently dumped in Black communities like mine. When toxic waste combines with fossil fuel flooding, the impact is unspeakable. My old basement in St. Louis County in a predominantly Black neighborhood used to regularly fill with potentially radioactive waste next to my son's bedroom due to floods made more frequent and intense by your production and burning of fossil fuels. Public school playgrounds in St. Louis regularly flood with radioactive water. Mr. Woods, would you send your children to one of these schools? Yes or no?
I'm sorry, could you repeat the question, please?
Would you send your children to one of the schools where radioactive waste, where we have this flooding? Thank you.
I would not.
Thank you. And I don't want to either, neither does my community. It's not a coincidence that our communities are more likely to flood. You have known this flooding was coming for years. Ms. Watkins has too. Ms. Watkins, in the 1988 Shell report on page 26, it says, large low-lying areas like Bangladesh may need to be abandoned. Ms. Watkins, does that bother you that your company deemed a country of 98 million brown people expendable in exchange for storing profits? Yes or no? It's just a yes or no.
Actually, Congresswoman, I'm glad my company's been involved in the science research and involved in these discussions for decades. And we have been open and engaging with communities. And I feel what you're saying. And we are very active in the communities in which we operate and looking to make ourselves very much members of the community and invest in communities, especially where there is risk of climate change hitting harder than in other places.
Thank you very much, because it bothers me. Let me just say that. You didn't say it, but I'll say it. It bothers me.
It bothers me too.
What
bothers me is that
that's the end of my questions. I have to keep moving. But I have another question for you. Was Shell aware that Black and Indigenous communities in the U.S. would flood and burn first? Yes or no? Black and Indigenous communities.
I'm sorry, Congresswoman, I'm not familiar with what you're referencing.
Let me ask you this. Are Black communities like mine in St. Louis expendable to you?
Of course not. Communities are not expendable. We work every day hand in hand with our communities. And in fact, climate change is such a pressing issue that we have, as companies, we have to work with the communities and with societies and with the government if we're going to be able to get to net zero by 2050.
Thank you. And, you know, your companies for decades have been misrepresenting information and redirecting attention to solutions you know to be false, and that's continuing even in this hearing. But I thank you for speaking up and saying what you said. We appreciate that. But we're at a tipping point. Developing fossil fuels now, given the escalation of the climate crisis and its harm on Black and brown communities, is unconscionable. Given each of your roles in these attacks on our humanity, you all should resign. Thank you, and I yield back.
Don't you just love that? She's polite and shit, and when they actually acknowledge their harm in some rare moment, she'll say thank you for that answer, and she's all nice to him, and then at the end she says, I think you all should resign. I love it. I love it. And again, executives just play dumb the whole time. They know the answers, but they try their best not to give them. The one woman says she's proud. Proud of what? Proud of covering up evidence of the climate crisis? Proud of covering up your role in it? Is that what you're proud of? Proud of polluting schools? Proud of polluting marginalized communities? Poisoning children? That's what you're proud of? You know, she just, actually, I'm proud that we were part of it. It's insane to me. Insane. But they try to twist it, contort the message into something that can be perceived as them being responsible and not them being monsters. So again, you know, I criticize politicians all the time when I don't think they're doing enough, and I wanted to praise Rashida Tlaib and Cori Bush there for absolutely searing a bunch of fossil fuel executives, and in a way that like we just don't often see in Congress, you guys. That usually hardball is like half of that. You know, it's good to see that. And I think we need, as a society more broadly, we need to make sure that that's the message we're pushing when we talk about these issues, is that the capitalistic incentive structure there is what drives that harm, right? One thing, just a quick side note, one thing that very much bothers me about environmental discussion is when we make it about individuals, right? Now, I'm please don't get me wrong, all for individuals doing whatever you can to, you know, minimize your footprint, all for it. But if you sit here and say the climate crisis is because you drive a car, 75% of pollution is done by 100 companies. So the problem is not individuals who are participating in the society that we've built, right? The person who needs to drive to get to work to put food on the table is not the problem. The problem is the companies that engage in this massive pollution and this system of prioritizing profit over everything else, even a habitable environment, right? And it's just good to see those executives who have been the benefactors of this corrupt system and capitalistic system at least get grilled every now and again, right? If you're going to make your fucking $20 million in bonuses or whatever, at least you got to sit in front of Congress and get grilled a little bit, right? We got to take what we can get, right, you guys? It's pathetic that it's that little, but we got to take what we can get. And good on Rashida Tlaib and good on Cori Bush for taking them to task in the manner that they did. So at this point,